So we've got a session here, and we are going to get right into automation modes here in Pro Tools. This is Ryan Black, and I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the various automation modes in Pro Tools and a couple demonstrations of how one might use them here in this mixing session. First, if you're in your mixer view, you can see the automation mode that is on any individual track right here below the inputs and outputs where it says auto. If you click on there, you're going to see 5 options. The first is off, and that's simple enough. That means it won't read any automation that is on that track. The second one is read. That means it will read any automation that is on that track. If something is not automated, the automation isn't using up any processing, but if something is automated, it will react to it. It can be really useful to know that there's an off option if you've done something, you really got into it, and you want to check what did it sound like before, that sort of thing. So keep that off one in mind. Below that is touch mode. Touch mode is very useful for faders, sometimes very useful for all of the parameters in plugins. And essentially what touch mode does is when you adjust a parameter, it writes automation, and when you stop or let go of a click on a mouse, it will snap back to the original position. So if you had, for example, touch mode engaged, say auto touch, and this fader is at negative 10.3. If you, as it was playing, so it's playing for a while, you click, you can see it turned red at auto touch. Then I bring this up, and now when I let go, it's going to snap back down to 10.3. Now I let go of my mouse click, and it goes back down. So I'll just play that back, and you'll see this fader is going to move when I clicked, and now I started moving it up. I'm not doing that with the mouse. That is now written in the channel, and I'll show you what some of that looks like in a second. Now it'll snap back down. Technically. There it is. All right. That's touch mode. Now the next one is latch mode. And I would highly recommend you get, if you do something in touch mode, you then go back to read mode afterwards. Otherwise, any parameter that you adjust will immediately start writing automation. You don't want that. Latch mode means when you adjust a parameter, it will start writing automation. But when you release that parameter, it will stay at the level you moved it to. So let me show you that real quick. It's playing. I bring up the Barry sax, and I just leave it, and it just stays there. It's never going to snap back down. Now you see this one going. This is what's in touch mode. This is in latch mode. So that also wrote automation, but it wrote automation that for the rest of the track, that Barry sax is up here at 0 or unity gain. I just undid that. Latch mode can be great if you want to bring something to another level. For example, you want to bring up the distortion on a guitar part, or you want to push the reverb on your vocal parts in the chorus. And then that'll go all the way through the rest of that chorus or through the rest of the song if you want. The fifth option here, if you count off as an option, is write mode. And write mode is the most dangerous. This means as soon as you hit play, every single parameter that can be automated is automated. Now this was quite useful in static mix world with digital consoles or with analog consoles that had flying faders on them, MIDI-based automated fader systems and stuff, because you had to write a static mix. So you would do this, it would write a static mix, and then you could basically use a touch mode to adjust details from there. I find that in modern production DAW mixing, where you don't have a set of touch faders or a console, I very rarely use write mode. Most often use touch mode, and once in a while we'll use latch mode. Those are the primary modes. Now, there are a couple other modes that you might see in other versions or in other programs. One of those is a touch/latch mode, which will put the faders in touch mode and the plugins in latch mode in Pro Tools. That can be super useful, so you can come down and bring something down, or and then it will snap back up. But you can only do that if you have a great static mix. And something to think about is in any mix, there are essentially 4 stages. The first stage is going to be preparation, gain staging, taking your tracks. For example, you can see this has been raised 7.8, this 4.4, this 3.5, the whole track just up, so that this is going to be at a optimal level in all of my plugins. So that's like the first stage of mixing. The second, and prep, that's color coordinating, getting everything organized in the right things. And this is stuff that often would be in a larger studio done by interns or assistants. The second stage of mixing is a static mix. And this also can be done by trusted assistants and engineers, as well as potentially an intern in a small studio. And this is getting a mix where everything sounds good, but nothing is automated, nothing's moving. All your faders are set, all your plugins are set. And that really becomes utility to the art of mixing. And unfortunately, that's often where a lot of people think that they have done a mix, and then they have what's called, well, what is a static mix, but it's also often a boring mix that doesn't bring excitement to the music. The third stage is where you're really getting into the details of mixing and bringing up small parts, and this often involves using automation. And if you go back historically, this would involve multiple people, each with their hands on faders, moving things and coordinated dance to make the mix come alive. And then the fourth stage is sort of compacting sessions, delivery, and the back end of finalizing all the great work you've done. The key, I think, there is don't do automation too early in the process, because it can cause issues down the line. When you want to go adjust something, you've got automation on the fader, it can be really, really frustrating, because now you have to adjust the automation. You can't just click and adjust the fader and do that, which I find really frustrating. Same thing with plugins. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to show how this works. So that's the basics of automation. Oh, there is one more automation mode that sometimes comes up in Pro Tools HD and in studios, as well as on SSL consoles, which is a trim mode automation with TRIM. And that is generally used to constructively add value to something that is already automated. So you could have something that's automated with some crazy up and downs, and then you can say, oh, I just did all of that too much, and you could trim it all by like 3 decibels down, and automate that additional layer of automation on top of an original layer that is not available in many sort of semi-pro or consumer grade DAWs, including this version of Pro Tools. So that's it. Those are all the modes of automation. Now, let's put them to use and see how they appear. So if we take a look here, and we're going to just focus on this one little section of this song, which is the intro and the horns come in. So if we're listening here, cool. So let's say I want that bass note to really pop. I'm going to go into my bass here. Yeah, so I'm just going to use that amp one here, just so you can see kind of what I'm doing. If you wanted to put this into touch mode, you could do this with a fader. So we'll come back here, and I'll show it in touch mode. And so that will now do this. Now, personally, I don't really like to automate my faders at all in DAWs. I find it frustrating because now I can't just go, oh, you know what, I want to bring down the whole bass. So what I will do across all of my tracks, once I have a good static mix going, and even my groups, I will do this sometimes, but in this case I'll just do the tracks here, and I'm going to deselect the stereo tracks. Holding down Shift and Option, I will actually put a gain plugin or a trim plugin on all those tracks, and then that I will automate. So now that doesn't do anything, it's just a volume control. It's just having another fader on the track. But if I go into that one on the bass, oop, I don't know what it is doing. Okay, that was crazy. So if I go into this plugin right here, it's a fader. That's all it is. And now, if I put this into, and now what I need to do is look at what parameters can be automated on each plugin. Every plugin in Pro Tools is going to have this auto tab on it and this little folder icon. If you click on that, you'll get all the parameters. So here's the other plugins that are on this channel strip for the bass. Trim only has a couple parameters, but the EQ7 band has a whole lot of parameters. This is kind of an extra step. It's an antiquated part of Pro Tools, and it can be frustrating if you don't know what it's doing, but I think it can be really useful if you do. So what that means is you can specify which parameter you want to automate. In this case, I'm going to automate the gain. And so I choose that parameter and automate it here. Now that will appear in my track view selector here of the bass under the track view selector. Trim, gain. Now I could put all the parameters in here, which is a lot of DAWs. This is what they do. They give you everything, which is fine. But that means you can click on something and suddenly you have like a huge list of stuff to try to get through to figure out which one you actually want to look at. And that can be mind-numbing if you have 150 tracks or something and you're trying to get stuff together. So you can see the plugin now has an outline in green. And if I go ahead and I put this into touch mode, I can do the exact same thing. And now I've got that written into the track. But I can also say, you know what, I think the bass is just a little too loud, and I can bring the whole track down slightly, which is great. Then let's keep going. Now you might hear that little trumpet, and well, it's trumpet, tenor, and baritone right when these parts hit. I've got these set up with 3 buses here. And what I'm going to do, and the first three buses, or bus 1 across all 3 tracks is reverb, and bus 3 is a delay. So what I'm going to do is make my horn parts awesomer. And this is how I'm going to do it. In my 3 horn parts, I have them selected, so holding down Shift and Option, I can put them into touch mode. Now, we're going to listen to that horn part, and we're going to add more reverb at the end of each. There you potentially heard the trumpet go boop. I'll turn off the trim. So here it goes again. Right? So now I automated in touch mode these. This is my reverb on my horns, and these are my delays on my horns. So check it out. Okay, and here's my Barry. I missed. Damn it. So I can Command Z that. So I'm clicking. You can see the... And you might go, oh, those held up for too long, the delay there. And you would not be wrong. But now we can go back here, and we can go to our trumpet trombone here. Make our track view selector large so we can see it. I'm holding down Shift and Option to apply this just to these tracks. And we can see send 1, level, and there's the reverb send. And if you want, at the bottom of the track, you can actually bring out additional parameters. And then you could see, for example, send 3, which is that delay level. Technically, I don't know why I didn't do it. Level. There we go. And so now I can see my reverb send on each of these, and I can see my delay send. And you can see this is where I messed up on the baritone. And if you feel like it was too much, you'd, I think, be right. But the reason I'm showing you this is all of your tools in Pro Tools also apply to the automation here. So if you come in and you, for example, want to bring all of this down, you can hit Command 2 and grab your trimmer tool and just bring it all down. It's great. You can use your grabber tool to drag points around, right? You can use the selector tool just to select certain ones and then certain areas and move points around within that area like that with the trimmer tool, right? So it's quite robust. And you can also, if you hold down Option, you can just get rid of points. And if you use your selector and you just select the points, because we're only looking at the automation here, you can just remove those. So here, so if we're like, man, I really just, this all sucks over here, we've got to get rid of that. Okay, cool. You grab your trimmer tool, bring it down, pop up the point you want there. And, you know, this is a little manual at this point, but the reverb turned out great. If you wanted everything to just be lower, you could just do this with the trimmer tool, bring it down a little bit on that send, and then cut out a couple of these at the end here and bring this guy back over. Kind of clean it up so we don't get that snare hit. And still getting it in the trumpet. This hit right there. That's what I don't want. So I'm going to bring this one over. I'm going to bring this one down and over. And then I'm just going to delete these. And now, almost, using my grabber tool again, I should have a cleaner. Yeah. So now check out this horn part with this reverb throw. So that will add a lot of cool stuff to your horn part, and it's all going to be awesomely automated. Now you can also hold on a second. I think this is going to do, yeah. So you can also take automation, copy it around, move it places. You can copy it on the grid, for example, so that it lines up perfectly. And you can create that so that we get the same. Ooh! Now we'll put it in context here. Woo! And now that's popping. That's what I was going for. That's cool. This is a great track here. Anyway, so this is where you can get into all the parameters that you can automate. And then I'm just looking at the inserts here. Any plugin will have this little icon, and there's all the parameters. So you can just Command A and add all of them if you want. That's fine. Go for it. but then you have a lot to go through to figure out what is going to be automated. And then you have your basic parameters, and that is the basics of automation. One other really cool thing that I'll show though is sort of it's automation, but it's in a different place in the channel signal path, and that is, if you go to View, you go to Clip Gain Line. Under clip gain line. This allows you to adjust the gain of the individual tracks, clips, before, it's really important, before all of your plugins in your channel strip. So if you had, for example, a horn hit, one note or something where you're like, man, I wish that one was more forward, like these. You're like, I just want that part to be at the same level as everything else, or to fade out quicker. You can actually go in here and grab just those notes on the trumpet and write in the gain so that the attacks and stuff are perfect, just how you want it. And try to get that thing like more full. Or if you don't like how this part right here sweeps up in volume, you want it to hit harder, you can do that. And the gain, oh, might have overdone that one a little bit. Probably overdid that a lot. Let's see. I'm trying to get, so I'm bringing the gain up 8 decibels ish and then back down to 0. All right, there we go. It's pretty cool. So that is the gain of the audio before all of your plugins. This is really important. This is not how you adjust level of your channels. This is adjusting everything before your compressors, before your gates. So this will mess up effects that are transient based if you have them set perfectly. So I would recommend doing this as part of that second stage of mixing, where you're prepping and putting and doing a static mix. Get all of this stuff done if you can. Make sure your gains are appropriate, they're peaking, and all your levels sound great. And then you can do that, and then you can go into your third stage of mixing, which is the art of mixing. It's all the automation, the little things, the delay throws, the sends, the little backward swishes that make things sound so cool. And sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. And just make art. That's what it's about at the end of the day. So there you go. That's automation. The modes can be found here. They're basically the same in every DAW. There's a couple other ones. That touch latch mode that I mentioned, that's the two combined, where you have touch on the fader and everything else is on latch. And then you have a trim mode, which shows up in some programs. And then that little trick I showed with all the trim plugins, I think that is very useful. I've had some folks, who feel that that's not the best way to work, but I love it because I can still go back and adjust all this, but I get to keep all my automation, and I don't have to go into all the faders. And then seeing how you actually access all that in Pro Tools, a little different, but it's quite useful. You can see a bunch of different parameters on any track, and adjust and have all of them accessible, which is really, really useful. And that is it. And there's a little California style fade out with the bump in the middle.